All right, welcome, guys. We're back for another day of bonding time. As customary, we start with our sign-ins,
The
and it's
name.
leading the way. As moderator today, it's Patrick, Ramon Patrick.
Oh, sorry, I said my name early. The name's Greenwich, Christopher Greenwich,
Hutchinson, David Hutchinson.
and then John fucks it up.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
Doo 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 doo.
I'm Jonathan.
Woo! All right. Today we are reviewing Goldfinger. All right. Who's leading with their overall synopsis? How was it for you guys? What do you think? Let's start with John because I like that face.
It was all right. You know what? I remember there are good things in this movie that I enjoy, right? There are also, it wasn't as entertaining as the others, and it's interesting because it's like there's highs and lows, and then there's just like middle ground. It was entertaining. I mean, like I had fun watching it. I don't know, Dave, you mentioned before about how Sean Connery at some point just did not want to do these movies anymore. I don't know if that happened yet or if this was the beginning of that happening, but I can definitely see where there was a couple of things that they're phoned in a little bit. But overall, it's a good movie. I enjoyed it. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I think I'd agree with you. I think it was another strong entry in the series. I like that they got away from Spectre, so that was a nice change of pace. It did kind of drag a little bit in the middle, so I kind of agree with you, John, there that it definitely had its ups and downs, but overall, I think it was another strong entry.
I think it was good. I think it's very iconic. I think when people think Sean Connery, they always remember Goldfinger because of the Golden Girl, Odd Job. There's so many quotes in this movie, like with Goldfinger saying, "Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die."
That's
like, there's such a good line.
There's so much in this movie that is iconic to the Bond series, and it's like this is the movie that really built that formula.
Yeah.
Like the title sequence with the Bond song and everything, that is such an iconic song. But it was kind of boring at some points, and when you think about it, Bond didn't really do anything. Once he got to Kentucky, and he was after Goldfinger decides not to kill him, he doesn't do anything. There's nothing that he does until the end of the movie when he has the fight with Oddjob. And in terms of locations and locale, there's Miami at the beginning and there's Kentucky. That's not very interesting at all.
Switzerland was interesting. I thought Switzerland was cool.
Well, yeah, that's true. Switzerland, but they weren't there for very long.
So where were they in the beginning?
Miami.
No, not when in the very beginning, like the opening.
Yeah, they were in Switzerland that time.
They were in Switzerland? No, it was a Spanish country. I'm talking about the very.
No, I think that was Mexico. But yeah. Oh, that's another thing. Like I loved the intro. I think the beginning sequence of this movie was actually even better than From Russia with Love. Like, well, they did so much good in this movie. But yeah.
Wait. Before we get there, let me give my opinion. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I have no idea what you guys are talking about. I'm like, ooh, this is the correct Bond formula right here. Right, this is when they perfected it, and look forward to seeing much more of it going forward. And leading us into our thoughts on the opening sequence.
Go for it, Dave.
I thought the opening sequence was awesome. I liked it wasn't really related to the plot at all. It kind of is like its own thing, but I don't know. It was so good. It was so good. It was it took like the From Russia with Love opening sequence, but that one didn't have Bond. So this is like the first time you get that opening sequence with Bond, and it's completely unrelated. It's like almost you're seeing the ending of another movie, because there's a Bond girl and everything. There's a villain. He gets the villain. So I really liked that. I thought it was really well done. And then in terms of the title sequence, I mean, this is the best of the movies we've watched so far. I mean, it's the first time you have this official Bond song, how they did the gold intro, and you see like some scenes from the movie in the gold. So it's like foreshadowing stuff that happens later in the movie. Loved it. It was awesome. I think my favorite opening sequence so far.
Okay. John?
Yeah, I am not there with you. So after watching the whole movie, the opening sequence felt like they shot a movie and then they're like, oh crap, we forgot to shoot an opening. Let's go back and do that. And then they're like, all right, where's the cheapest place that we can do it? Some Spanish country. So we'll go do that in some weird place. There's no point to what they did. And I think that's the problem for me with this movie, is that they did a lot of cool stuff, iconic stuff, a lot of good stuff, but it was, when we're talking about story and development, it was pointless. There are so many missed opportunities in this movie because they had good stuff in it, but they didn't capitalize on that. And that irked me. Because
how does that apply to the opening sequence though?
Because like how does the opening sequence connect to anything? And so
well, I don't think it's supposed to. I think this opening sequence is unique from the first two because it's supposed to stand on its own.
But there's the thing, right? When I'm watching a movie, I don't want the opening to stand alone. I want the opening to hint at something greater to come. Like I like the last opening sequence because it introduced me to the bad guy, and I really, like I said, I really enjoyed watching Red throughout that movie. In Dr. No, again, it was a little bit different, but this opening sequence, Goldfinger's opening sequence, specifically felt like nothing. It felt like it was interesting for about 2 seconds, and then it didn't lead anywhere. So I was like, what's the point? Like, why did you could have just made this movie 5 minutes shorter. Like, it didn't lead anywhere. The opening credits, I feel like if the last one, I made it very clear about how I felt about these shadows. And it was a little bit better. It was better this time. And I did like the gold. I did appreciate the gold, and it's a little bit cheeky and on the nose. But I think just because I didn't like the last shadows so much, that seeing shadows again, I was like, come on, guys. Okay, you learned a little bit of your lesson, but like you could do better than this. Come on.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, ooh, John's gonna say the same thing.
Yeah, pretty much. And again, at least it registered as what they wanted. I could read it, and I saw like certain things, and I was like, okay, it's better. But I was still turned off essentially. But yeah, it wasn't better for me than the other two. It was better than From Russia with Love. I'll give you that. In From Russia with Love, opening scene, really enjoyed that. Did not like the opening credits. With this, I didn't like the opening scene because I thought it was stupid. Well, not stupid, but I thought it was pointless. And the opening credits, better. Still, they had the song, which I appreciated. I like that. I like that it was gold and it was stylized, but it still wasn't like, oh, this is great. It wasn't like, this is awesome. It was, I think I was just really hesitant because of the last one. And I had like a bad taste in my mouth from that. And then I was like, oh, they're doing this crap again. Cool.
Yeah. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, no, I liked the opening sequence. I liked it better than From Russia with Love. I agree with John that, From Russia with Love, the way they did the title sequence, like, yeah, you really couldn't read the people's name. Like, it just made it a little difficult to, like, really, read the people's names. But yeah, this I liked. I actually thought the opening credits here for Goldfinger kind of did relate to the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, it had the woman kind of dressed out in gold, just kind of in the background, and that's something that happens in the movie. So, I thought it was related. Um, I didn't like the fact that, all they really did was just kind of like show scenes from the movie, in her body. Like, I thought maybe they could have been a little bit more creative.
Yeah.
With it.
Agreed.
So, so overall, I liked it. Like the opening scene, better than From Russia with Love. I don't know if I'd say it's better than Dr. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm in the same boat as you. It's not better than Dr. No, but it was better than From Russia with Love. From Russia with Love was.
I'm gonna be the controversial opinion. I'm agreeing that Dr. No was, I guess, better than all three, but I kind of liked From Russia with Love's opening more than Goldfinger.
Oh, so it's not bad? Oh, well, okay.
It's not that bad. It's just like, you could tell they tried it the first time and they tried to make it whimsical and funny and all in the spirit of Bond. Not serious, but you could see it. Goldfinger, they tried to make it serious and it's like,
Yeah, I'm really surprised that all three of you ranked Dr. No's opening over From Russia with Love and Goldfinger, because Dr. No didn't have the traditional opening.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting.
So what I'll say is it's that they're building the formula. They haven't gotten there yet,
But they have an iconic song. They do have an
iconic song. And see, that's the thing. They're building it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The song was great. Fuck, I forgot about the song. I love the song.
So,
I love the song, but I must be just old because I prefer the song From Russia with Love. Like, if I to sit down and listen to, I prefer From Russia with Love. But I think Goldfinger is, as a Bond song, is so good.
But they played the song at the end. I liked the song when I heard it, but they didn't play it in the beginning. If they played it in the beginning, I would have been happy. I would have been like, okay, these opening credits or something. But they didn't do that.
In terms of just song by itself, I think Goldfinger, I like the song in terms of how it works with the title sequence better. But I prefer, if I'm just listening to the song, I think I prefer From Russia with Love.
I would prefer From Russia with Love if we're just talking about the song as well. Goldfinger's the song, I didn't check how long the actual opening credits are, but I remember at some point I'm like, okay, you could stop now. You could.
What? I'm tired. Yeah, dog. Best song they had hands down so far. Most iconic song so far. Like, loved it. Love the song. Best one hands down so far.
Definitely agreeing with Chris on this one.
Blows everything out the water. Goldfinger.
And with that segue, Bond villain, guys. What do you think? Chris, you leading this one off?
This guy. So yeah, again, I like what they did here, getting away from Spectre. Respect. Trying to create a new villain to focus on. Goldfinger, so I liked him as a villain, but he was kind of silly at times. So
yeah,
it was kind of hard for me to take him serious sometimes. Honestly, because when it starts off, like in the beginning of the movie, like he's getting owned by Bond, like they're just sitting by the pool, playing cards with this other guy, and he's cheating. And then Bond just like kind of messes up the game for him. And, so it kind of starts off with Bond kind of just getting the best of him already. So, it kind of lowers his stock a little bit. Shoot. I'm getting a call from my boss, guys. Can we hold on a second?
Yeah, let's pause it.
All right, they can pause it. Back again, we're recording.
Awesome. So, so with Goldfinger, I like certain parts of him as a villain. He was diabolical, like not maybe diabolical, but he was very strategic in his planning. He sounded like he had a really good plan to me, of how to steal the gold out of Fort Knox, I think it was. Like, I thought that was a very elaborate plan. I appreciated that, but then it was hard to maybe take him serious at all times, just because I mean, the guy gets sucked out of a window.
Back to you, Chris. Take it away. Recording.
Awesome. Yeah. So, Goldfinger. To me, he was. I think he's the most iconic villain so far. I think I like him the most, even though I said like it was hard to take him serious. I appreciated that there was a serious aspect to him, and then they kind of built in a little silly aspect to him, and I like that. And to me, he was like the most memorable villain thus far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
sorry. And a special shout out to Oddjob. That guy was awesome. Like, he was one of the most memorable henchmen. He's the most memorable henchman so far. Like, you see him in the beginning, you're like, "Ooh, what's this guy's deal?" Then he just like chops down a statue with his hat. Awesome. Like, how could you not love that? Memorable. Love it. Those two guys, love those two villains the most so far in the series.
So I like Goldfinger too. He's kind of a slob. The thing is, I don't think I prefer Red from Russia with Love, because in From Russia with Love, he always had the upper hand. Goldfinger never has the upper hand, except when he has the laser and Bond on a table. But aside from that, he doesn't ever have the upper hand. I never really feel like Bond is threatened, except for that one scene, which is the best scene in terms of villain versus Bond in the movie, for sure, in my opinion, aside from the final scene between him and Oddjob. And I agree with you, Chris. Oddjob is amazing. I love Oddjob. I mean, he doesn't talk, which is kind of he just kind of grunts. He's like Frankenstein or something. I don't know. I actually don't even think he spoke English, actually. I think the actual actor didn't speak any English. Yeah. But, I mean, they dubbed everyone in these old movies, too. Like Goldfinger, that's not his voice. He acted, and then someone is dubbed over him. So, but...
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I loved Goldfinger. I think he's iconic. I think Oddjob is iconic. I think this whole movie is iconic. But it doesn't... From a villain perspective, I rank Oddjob over Goldfinger. Like, Oddjob is awesome.
Yeah.
For me. But I think so far my favorite is Grant from Russia with Love.
Okay. John?
So, I like Goldfinger because he was not the last villains that we saw were thinkers. They were straight up thinkers, and they had these elaborate plans, and he had an elaborate plan, but his elaborate plan was a little bit like a fifth grader being like, "So this is what I'm gonna do." It was so ridiculous, and it was so like Fort Knox. Of course I'm going to rob Fort Knox, or of course I'm going to rob Fort Knox. It was just so ridiculous that I loved it. He wasn't, yes, he's a smart guy, but he was more of a thug and a gangster as opposed to like a methodical genius. I don't think that anyone would ever describe Goldfinger as a genius. Like even comparing some other bad guys, Kingpin is a gangster genius. Goldfinger is not like that, and his motivation is literally, I like gold. Like, there's nothing more than that. His motivation is gold is great. All the gold. And it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And that's why I appreciate it, because he's funny. It's not always, my deep and yearning anger. It's, you're a ridiculous guy with a ridiculous henchman and that's why I liked it, because it fit. It made sense, right? Because once I grab onto that premise of, okay, this guy is not a super genius. He's just like kind of a kooky guy who gets his way all the time. He kind of reminded me of like a child who throws tantrums all the time.
I see
and,
that, yeah.
And happens to get his way. And that's just what happened throughout his life. He just always got his way, and he turned out this way. Odd Job was amazing. So campy, so ridiculous that I was like, if we're working on this premise of this idiot can be a millionaire, and the way that he talks to people is like, if you don't take your $1 million now, you will get $10 million. Like, seriously, dude. Everything about him was just so jokey and ridiculous. I was like, all right, and that's why I liked him, because if you have every villain being exactly the same and methodical and intelligent and blah blah blah, all of those traits in a different form, it's not fun anymore.
It gets boring.
He was at least fun.
Yeah.
Odd Job was fun. Goldfinger was fun, ridiculous and fun. So while he might not be the greatest villain ever, at least he was like a good time. And now that I think about it, him being that way, while there are iconic things in this, I feel like if this might have actually just been like a filler movie.
I can see that.
Because there wasn't even Spectre in it. And I kind of expected him to be like related to Spectre in some way, but he wasn't, because he's not smart enough being Spectre.
Dang.
You know what I mean? He's not. So this is kind of like a side mission and that actually makes sense the way that it started as well. This is like a side mission that he did while he was on his main quest. I had fun with it. He was a good filler. It was an enjoyable filler.
As I said, I like this. Well, as I said, I like this movie, and I actually really, really like Goldfinger.
Right?
Like, he seemed like he wasn't a ridiculous bad guy. He was pretty down to earth, like whimsical. I mean, no one took him seriously. Like, all of his business dealers didn't take him seriously. But at the same time, like, he had legit business practices going on.
Yeah.
And I liked his idea. Like, he laid a pretty solid foundation. In my opinion, like, Bond seemed to be under his thumb for most of the time. Because right after the laser scene, Bond is a side character, effectively. Like, everything is literally about him and his plan. He set it up well. He had an alibi, and then he switched it on them and was like, "Oh, yeah, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna increase the. I'm not even gonna steal the gold, because that's gonna be too much effort. I'm gonna plant something, fuck up the U.S. and make my gold 10 times richer." Yes.
You know what? There was that was the best part in terms of Goldfinger, because I noticed, like, throughout the movie, Bond was always insulting Goldfinger. Like, he never, not once did he ever acknowledge Goldfinger as like an equal. But when Goldfinger told him like the real plan, he was like, "Whoa,
I underestimated you."
I take it back. That's inspired." Like,
right.
Whoa. Damn, I didn't know you had it in you.
Yeah, they had the same view of each other. Like, Goldfinger was like, all right, Bond. From the very beginning, Bond's a throwaway. Like, even when he told him, the Secret Service know exactly what your plan is. They know about it. Well, at least the next guy will be more successful. Die.
Yeah.
Like, Goldfinger never took Bond seriously. Bond didn't take Goldfinger seriously. And in the end, coming towards the end, Bond had to take him seriously, because he wasn't actually a joke. He started that way, but he wasn't. He was a decent villain to me.
I know we haven't got to one-liners yet, but Goldfinger had more one-liners than Bond. Goldfinger's dialogue was so good. I mean, I loved that. I thought his dialogue was great.
Well, Ramon, are you ready to move on to one-liners? Because I think Dave, you've got a point. Or
Let's
Ramon,
segue. We do one-liners. Let's go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So,
Dave, one-liner.
Well, my choice of one-liner, because I don't know if we ever discussed this in terms of choosing a one-liner, but it's the one-liners we pick are from Bond, right? It's a Bond one-liner.
No,
it's something
it
Bond
can be anyone.
says.
Anyone.
In the beginning, I would have said yes, it would be a Bond one-liner, but not for this movie. This movie is completely, they go there. I agree with you, Dave, because I have the same issue. The best one-liner for this movie is not from Bond.
No, it's not. But all right, so the one I took down though was from Bond. It's in the opening sequence when the guy's in the bathtub. And the thing is, there are a few movies I remember like most watching with you guys. This is one of them because I remember Chris's reaction at the scene when he says positively shocking. Shocking. Positively shocking.
Oh yeah.
So that is forever my favorite line of the movie. It will always be. Because I think we when we first started watching these movies, we started at Thunderball. Oh. Thunderball was the first one. We actually went back and watched.
And then watched Goldfinger after. Yeah.
So by that point, I think we had already watched Live and Let Die, and you guys were looking for the cheese. And I remember this one came early, so I just remember Chris dying at this scene. So that will always be my most memorable line in this movie.
Yep. Yeah. I remember that one. That one killed me absolutely dead. So, that was excellent. For me, I'd have to say I liked when Pussy Galore introduced herself. So she's like, "My name is Pussy Galore," and James Bond is like,
"I must be dreaming."
That's my favorite one right there.
I brought the whole laughing at that.
And
even
the thing
today,
is,
I was just like laughing at that silently in the office.
And he hesitates too, like he can't believe what he's just heard. He's like
he hesitates, and his facial expression of that too. Like his face says it all. Like, I must be dreaming.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a great line.
Yeah. What about you, John? What you think, Doc?
I don't think that Bond had the best one-liner. I think, like you mentioned it before, Dave, when when Bond was like, "What do you expect me to do?" and he's like, "I expect you to die." I thought that was the best line. I didn't deliver it well, but like I was like, yeah, I mean that seems fair. That seems fair.
Yeah, that one is definitely
because he was so frank about it. He was like, "B, just die." He's just like,
I was like, why not just shoot him?
He never took Bond seriously. It's just like, die.
Just die. Well, yes. I actually want to circle back to that because that was the thing about this movie. It was so ridiculous. Who was on top? There was no one on top because Bond was his captain, but he got away. And then he doesn't kill him. He was just like, he just brought him back to his cell. Mm-hmm. There were so many, like, who's in control here? And that's the whole point.
This is where Austin Powers made fun of the fact that the villain catches Austin Powers and then thinks of the most elaborate way to kill him. Strap him to a table and kill him with a laser.
Yes, it was just, and even his whole thing with the laser, it was so ridiculous. Who was in control here? I feel like if in the middle of this movie, they're like, who is running this show? Like, what is going on here? Is it James Bond movie? Is it Odd Job? Like, is it Goldfinger? What's going on? Is it Pussy Galore? Because honestly, she stole this show at some point. I felt like if she needed her own movie to really like get there and like explain it. But if we're going with James Bond, it's the opening sequence as well. But I didn't pick that line. I didn't pick the shocking. I picked he blew a fuse.
No, that was the last one.
That was great.
That's my second. That is definitely my second.
I was like, seriously? Because that electrocution scene was absolutely ridiculous to start with, right? The opening, again.
That's why I love Odd Job. He's so focused. He's like, I don't care if we're locked in. I don't care if we're going to die. No one's going to fuck with that bomb.
Yeah.
Like, he just completely throws the other guy. He's like, we're locked in. I have to get the bomb. Shut it off. And he's like, nope, you're going to die.
You had a plan. Sticking with it, damn it.
Also, I didn't like the way that Odd Job went out because he was owning that fight the entire time. He was in control. If there's one person in control, it was Odd Job. He had his shit on point. And then man just like got electrocuted.
I actually thought that was like the best way to do it because it was not obvious to me. Like when he was starting to reach for the hat, I was like, "Oh, is this how it ends? Is that how Bond does it?"
What was your favorite one line, Ramon?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was definitely the "I must be dreaming." It was the introduction. Like so, I was crying. Like when I saw I was crying laughing. Let's see, I watched it on Tuesday up until today, which is Friday. I was thinking about it and laughing in the office. Like it was, yeah.
There was one other line I want to mention because I thought it was great. It was from Goldfinger when he's leading the gangster away. And the thing is, when he first says it, you don't even realize it is a pun because Bond asks, "Oh, why are you leaving so soon? Like, where's Mr. Solo going?" And he's like, "He has a pressing engagement." And then Oddjob drives him to get crushed in the car. A pressing engagement. And I was just like, that is good. Bond even comments on it later on, like when he sees the guy come back and it's like a square and Goldfinger says, "Oh yeah, there's Mr. Solo." And Bond's like, pressing engagement indeed. And I just thought that was really good. It's like they drop a line in the movie and the audience doesn't realize it's a line. And then it happens and they're like, "Oh shit."
That did not click for me. Yeah. Even if you made the joke afterwards, that did not click for me at the time.
Epic. So that segues into Bond Girl, guys. Who's your Bond Girl choice and why?
Why don't you take it away, Ramon? Let me start us off there, sir.
Once again, Pussy Galore. With an introduction like that and the way she plays it off, like funny. Okay.
Like it's normal. Like, how do you say that with a straight face? Like, come on, dog.
And from now on, I'm this is how I'm gonna say it. Like it's as Bond said, it's Pussy Galore. Anyway. But like definitely stole the show. You're right, John. I think she was as good a villain as Goldfinger. And she probably did need her own movie because she had a brilliant setup going on.
Even if it were just like a very small short, it's like, who the fuck are your parents and why would they name you that? Like, did you change your name to be that? Like, what is wrong here? There's something very wrong here. What is it? Because this isn't right. It's just this isn't right. What happened to you?
That kind of stuff will scar a child.
It's true, but she came out and somehow it worked. Because once again, like his entire Goldfinger's entire troop was, I guess because she was the one that had the circus as far as I understood. So she had the planes. The entire Chinese team was technically hers. Yeah. So yeah, she was a
Korean team, not Chinese.
Yeah. Did they ever explain why all of Goldfinger's and people were Asian?
I think the only mention of it is when at the beginning M is or the prime minister, whoever it was trying to explain how they think Goldfinger is smuggling gold and he uses these different companies, and they mention one in Korea.
Yeah.
That's like one of his main ones. But yeah, that's it.
Why is this dude surrounded by a bunch of Asian people? Like, that's so weird.
Yeah, that was a good question.
Yeah.
Just
random.
I guess they were saying it was part of her team, but
yeah,
she's definitely she's definitely the Bond girl. I was just disappointed she got turned so easily, but yeah.
Seriously, dude. Seriously.
I don't think she got turned that easy. I mean, she definitely put up a fight. I mean, physically and mentally, yeah, and I think she put up a fight. To me, I mean, she's literally rolling around in the hay, in the barn with Bond because she's trying to, fight him off. But
I don't think she was ever really fighting her off. I think that was more playful than anything else. It was kind of like they from the first scene, they recognized each other as like, a challenge kind of thing. Like you're gonna challenge me.
Okay.
Like Bond recognized it in her, which we haven't seen before, and she recognized it in him, where she's like, you can turn off the charm, it's not gonna work, kind of thing. So they were both kind of recognizing each other as a challenge, and it was from that moment on, it was they're just kind of measuring each other up. Like there is chemistry there. But there is very playful. The way is really strange because it could come off as super
a little bit misogynistic.
Misogynistic.
Yeah.
But I don't think this movie was misogynistic, but not for Pussy Galore. I thought that whole thing was more playful. I think the scene at the beginning
they did see each other as equals. Yeah.
Yeah, I think how Bond treated Dink, and Jill and Tilly, those were the other three girls in the movies. I thought that was terrible. Like he just slaps the girl on the butt and is like, "Man talk,
run along."
Yes.
Those things I had way more problems with, but I loved Pussy Galore. Pussy Galore is my favorite Bond girl so far. I do agree with you, Ramon. I think she turned too easily, but I think everything up to that point, she was awesome.
I would also say that, I don't know, maybe the most iconic Bond girl from this one is the girl who gets the golden paint all over her.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No,
it's definitely an iconic scene. Definitely an iconic scene. But I mean, I barely remember her name. I'm always.
I actually don't.
Oh, I don't remember her name, but you remember.
To be fair, there's no way to forget Pussy Galore. Let's.
Yeah, there's no way. If there's ever one Bond girl to remember, it will always be. Even if you don't remember her face, you don't remember what she did.
The name is
movie,
definitely there.
Nothing. You will always remember that. That is so atrocious. I don't know who okayed this. I don't know who was like, yeah, this is it. This is the name. This is the name. Who is that? Like, God damn it.
I actually appreciate that they gave her that name and gave her personality and fleshed her out. Like she was in charge. She was definitely in charge.
So
can't wait till we get to Octopussy. Can't wait.
Chris, do you have anything else to say?
No, yeah, I think I agree. Pussy Galore is definitely the Bond girl from this.
So, yes, Pussy Galore is definitely the Bond girl, right? I think so. Me rationalizing it, I think that they were trying to be like, she's the epitome of a woman. She is so much of a woman. It's in her name. She that's just who she is. But again, exactly like you guys said, the way that she turned was so stupid. She turned because he had sex with her. Really? Like that. There's they're trying to create this. Forget idea. This mystery around his penis or something. Like if it's just like this incredible thing that makes women do the craziest thing.
He's a fantasy, but if for this one to have worked as a possible fantasy, like it needed to be more grounded, and this definitely wasn't grounded. Because even like the very beginning, when he introduced himself to once again the girl that got covered in gold paint, it was like,
yeah,
okay, sure.
So I get why she was into him. That made sense to me. But to go back to her and her sister Jill and Tilly, I think that was such a wasted opportunity.
True.
Tilly coming and trying to get them, right? I really thought that she was going to come back at some point and she was going to do something. I kind of wish that instead of Pussy Galore turning, she just stayed a bad guy. I kind of wish that she just stayed a bad guy so that we can actually get a strong female character. Because she started off but that's the whole problem. She started off being resistant, but it was just resistant. She didn't stick to her, I don't want to say character. She didn't stick to her morals. She didn't stick to her.
What her
Bond wore her down.
Yeah,
Bond wore her
impression.
So he wore her down by being rapey. Like, come on, like what?
Well, no, I mean it wasn't just that one scene. I mean he was trying to put the charm on her from the beginning. She was like, "Nah,
beginning,
having it."
But
and
that's a
point where Bond was like, "All right, I'm forcing this hand here. Let's see what happens here." You know.
But that's exactly it. So
you know,
if she stuck to her guns, and she was like, "I'm not being seduced by this idiot," then I would respect her as a character. If you do break down after saying something like that, whatever was meant before, whether it was being serious or being flirty, all it is at that point is foreplay.
I think they established that like when they found him right under the gangster scene, when she was the one that found it, was like if she wasn't into him at the time, she would treat him more roughly.
Yes, but that's exactly it, right? So at that point, although you have strong words, it's not strength at that point. It's just foreplay. You're just teasing.
Mm-hmm.
So then I can't take you seriously. And that's where she lost her strength for me. Is where, like, if she were serious, then I'd have been like, she's a serious woman. This is what she's about.
But I give it that it was also the times too, so like maybe that was their idea of strong female lead.
So that was my biggest problem with it. It's like these are a sign of times where it's like a strong woman isn't strong. Women aren't being strong because they're strong women. Strong women are being strong because it's foreplay for men. They're still men's playthings. And entertaining, like if you think about it for too long, so there's so many things wrong here. You know, even with the Tilly thing, like she was a strong character. She was trying to avenge her sister.
I don't think Tilly was a strong character. I think Tilly was way over her head.
And Bond knew it, and Bond treated her that way.
Yeah.
But I think that's the whole thing. I wanted her to be a strong character. I wanted her, and that's why I like Honey Rider, right? Because I underestimated Honey Rider. Idiot on the beach collecting shells. Manages to hold her own throughout the movie. Cool. I respect you. When you start from a base of power and then it's just foreplay, then it's just there for somebody else's amusement, so pointless. Just like, so I
see that point, actually. I do see that point.
Yeah, I don't know. She conflicted because even her having her, she was an essential part to his plan, and for her to switch like that was kind of like, but why? It wasn't money. It wasn't, he reasoned with you and he was like, this is a bad idea for whatever. It was literally just having sex.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm like not remembering the movie properly, but I mean, it was, like he kind of seduced her down. But then, I mean, he kind of reasoned with her as well. Like, he didn't, they didn't just like have sex and then, all right, I'm going to help you out. What do you need? Like, he kind of started to reason with her, about.
Yeah, so I assume there was more banter involved.
Yeah, this plan was going to cause, how bad this plan was, for America or whatever. So I think, I don't know.
Because he did say like 40,000 or 60,000 people would have died.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. So I thought he still had a reason with her. I thought he still did reason with her a bit, and not just like, slept with him and now she's like, oh, what do you need? Like, I don't know.
Okay, so
so wait, with John, with those failings, what is your rating then for the movie?
For what?
For the overall movie. What do you think?
Ooh, that's a rough one. That is a rough one. I think I'm gonna go. I am willing to adjust later on. I think I'm gonna give this movie a 7 because it was entertaining and I enjoyed it. Again, there's so many iconic things in this movie. I'll give it a 7 because it was still entertaining and it was still fun, but it lulled and there were things that pissed me off. It definitely, if if he was misogynistic before, if there was toxic masculinity before, this movie was like, yeah, solidified it, made it even worse. So it's a 7 for me.
Okay.
What about you, Dave?
So it's funny because I watched this movie last year, and I would have thought I was gonna rate it like a 10, but I think the way I rate movies has changed a lot. I don't think it's as good as From Russia with Love or Dr. No, but it's so iconic. Like, this movie is so iconic. It introduces the Aston Martin. It has so many good things going for it. Just Goldfinger, the coats that Goldfinger has. It has Odd Job. It has the iconic song. It's the whole Bond formula. It has the car with the gadgets. It has Q Branch.
The gadgets. We didn't even talk about the gadgets, man.
Yeah, there's so much iconic stuff in this movie. This is the Bond formula to a T that is then replicated in later movies. But the setting was so boring. Kentucky, the time spent in America, I just didn't get into that. And the fact that Bond is essentially saved from pussy. The whole scene where, pussy gets turned too quickly, but also the army knows what's happening, and is like the scene where they all get smoked up. Is like, it looks fake when they're dropping to the ground, and is like, oh god, this, like, the actors could have put a little more effort into that. But then you find out, oh no, they were just playing the whole time. But why? That doesn't make any sense. Why would they still let a nuclear bomb go into Fort Knox? And it almost went off. Makes no sense to me. But one thing I also want to mention is the fact that the first two Bond movies were directed by Terrence Young. This is the first one directed by Guy Hamilton. He also does Live and Let Die, Diamonds Are Forever. But Guy Hamilton, I think, brings a lot more comedic edge to it. This is like almost the start of the campiness. This movie started Bond campiness. Like, Roger Moore could have been Bond in this movie. It would have been fine. So my overall rating, I'm gonna give it an 8, but it's lower than Dr. No and From Russia with Love. Well, From Russia with Love, I gave it 9. So, it's lower than Dr. No for me.
And Dr. No was an 8 for you, right?
Yeah.
What did I give From Russia with Love?
You gave From Russia with Love a 9, Chris.
Okay. This one, man. I don't know. To me, this one, this is the most memorable one so far, man. I might got to give this one the best rating so far because I didn't remember shit from like Dr. No and From Russia with Love. Like, the first time I watched them, I remember Goldfinger though. Like, I remember this movie. I remember the Odd Job. I remember the villain. I remember Pussy Galore. Like,
because it's so iconic. That's the thing. It's so iconic.
You remembered it, yes, absolutely. Remember them. Very memorable movie. However, was it a good movie? You know?
Which would you watch over? Would you watch From Russia with Love again or Goldfinger?
I'd watch Goldfinger, I think. I'd watch Goldfinger again.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd probably watch Goldfinger again. I don't know. It's a tough one. I would rate Goldfinger higher than Dr. No. For me, just because, I don't know, it was just way more iconic, man.
Yeah.
I'd have to give Goldfinger a 9. Yes, it lagged. It definitely did like drag. And I agree that the locations weren't very pretty, very memorable. But I love that plan, man. Like, breaking into Fort Knox. Like, I mean, the first two movies, you know, the villains are like, you know, we're trying to affect the world itself. You know, I'm trying to affect countries, like, although I guess stealing or doing whatever he wanted to do to Fort Knox would have affected the United States. But I don't know, this plan was a little more narrow. Like, I don't know. I loved his plan. I loved him. I loved his campiness. you know, he was different from the first two villains. The action. I don't think it had very memorable action. You know, now that
Except the car scene. The car scene was
The
amazing.
car scenes were epic.
Loved the car scene.
yeah.
Okay, the car scene was good, right? But it was, I hate to say this, it was just a car scene. The only
It was just a car scene because we're rewatching it in 2020.
But it
Put
literally
yourself
started
in.
as an action scene
Yeah.
before
Okay.
that, and then
There
led into
was
the car
nothing
scene
like
after.
it back then.
I get that there was nothing like it back then. However, it is still just a car scene. The Odd Job, to me, gave a little bit more action. Odd Job, and to be honest, all he did was throw a hat, and everyone's like, "What the hell is going on with that hat?" But that was about it.
Oh, he could fight. He could fight too.
He could fight, and again, he threw around, and that was the other part of it. He just threw around Bond all the time, and then Bond electrocuted him. He didn't. The best action scenes were actually in the very beginning.
I thought the fight between Bond and Oddjob.
I thought the fight with Bond was actually pretty good.
It didn't it wasn't over in like 30 seconds. Like it actually, you know, they actually.
Yeah, because like once again, you saw the electric wire fall, and you're like, okay, that's gonna kill him. But I didn't expect. I expected it much earlier.
Right.
And they did it at a more unexpected time and unexpected way.
Right. So
me personally, I really.
Oh, wait, hold on, Chris. What's your number ranking?
Yeah.
9?
I think I gotta give this one a 9.
Okay.
With probably being, I don't know, this I don't know. I might even rank this over For Much of Love. It's just too memorable for me, man.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say 9.5 actually.
There you go.
Like I really like this movie. The villain.
So Ramon, if you had to round it up, because the way I'm doing the numbers is rounding, so it's only whole numbers. So is it a 9?
Oh.
Is it a 9.4 or is it a 9.6? Does it round up
No,
to
no,
10?
no, no.
Or does it
I'm
round
gonna
down
give
to
it 9.4. 9.4.
So it's a 9. So it's a 9
Yeah.
then.
Yeah, it's a 9. Because like once again, opening scene, beginning scenes, started with the action, set it up, had the classic Bond line. I expect you to die, Mr. Bond.
Yeah.
Like each of them didn't take each other seriously. Like both the bad guy and Bond were of the same mindset. Like, I don't take you seriously. You don't take me seriously, so on and so forth. He decides, all right, it makes sense keeping him alive. Let me find an opportunity for Bond to be of use to me because they know my plan, or they could know my plan.
Yeah.
He does that. He sets it up. Bond escapes, and then he's like, "Oh, you escaped. Did you hear my plan?" Like he seemed much smarter as a villain than anyone saw from the very beginning. Like I thoroughly respect him because like, "Oh, you saw my plan, Bond. So what was it again?"
Yeah.
Why does that make sense? Go on. Like he was an intelligent villain to me. I like the villain. The henchman was iconic. No one can ever forget Odd Job. The plan was iconic. Every scene had its point, or had its point to me as well. So
First scene.
Yeah, I didn't at no point did I feel as if I could fall asleep during this movie. This was like, yes, I'm totally in
but
this.
you did fall asleep.
No, first time. Now on the other hand.
But so I hear what you're saying and I get what you're saying, but I have to disagree. The whole Tilly thing, I think Jill made Tilly make sense. And in the end, they didn't do anything with Tilly, so that didn't make sense.
That's
fine, Tilly didn't make sense.
But it
Jill
seemed
didn't
like
make sense.
It seemed like an organic environment to me because once again, if you're somebody in that setting as a bad guy, like he had a life or he was doing things before Bond showed up.
So
like,
I get that he was doing things before, right? The whole time that they spent in Switzerland was pointless. The whole time that they spent in Mexico was pointless.
No, because Bond
Mexico
got
was
captured
fun.
in Switzerland.
I liked the Mexico scene.
Huh?
Well, I liked the point like where Bond introduces himself and they're playing golf and stuff, and where he's tracking Goldfinger. Like those are interesting scenes, and the car chases in Switzerland. But I Tilly was kind of a pointless character. I agree with you on that, John, for sure.
I just think that it, and so she ultimately was a pointless character, but there was potential there. There was potential there for more. I think so. If there's no reason for them to go to Switzerland. If they did all of those things in Miami and then went to Kentucky, I'd be like, okay, fine. You just saved airfare.
No, because like once again, there was that globe-trotting element of Bond that we saw. So,
No, but that's exactly it. But it's globe-trotting without a purpose. And I really,
no, because
I actually,
like they established like all right, they established Goldfinger's MO. He was a gold dealer. How is he dealing his gold? Because they know he's messing around. So then we find out, all right, he's got this plan where he builds his cars out of gold, flies over to Switzerland, gets them melted down, and then sells them there. Bond figures out this plan and is like, oh, I have you now. No, I got bigger plans in play. Hence
yeah,
Kentucky.
again, I get the reasoning, but when I break it down, it just doesn't seem necessary. It just seems like a lot of fluff. And I think that that's funny as well, because I agree there's a lot of good stuff here. And out of your ratings, you rated this better than the other thing.
Yeah.
It boils down to, if it's entertaining, it's better.
No, but like
If
this one, it feels as if the crumb, like he followed those crumbs. This is more detective / espionage movie than the others to me.
It was definitely more espionage. That's the reason. So that's what I will give the opening scene and a couple other scenes, is that it set it up as a spy movie. A globe.
See, I think From Russia with Love movie is the most spy espionage movie of the three. For me.
It is very espionage. No, but this is how they set him up in this movie as a spy, by doing certain things.
But I think like the espionage went out the window once, like after the golf scene. Like once he was captured, like he was a spy up until he was captured, but that happens before even you get to the midway point of the movie. I think that's where the movie started to drag. Was after,
yeah, but the middle part is the problem, essentially, because there's so many things that just don't make sense. I'll say it again, there's a lot of good stuff. There's a lot of things that are cool, but when I seriously give it some thought, I'm just like, Burr, you didn't need to go. He didn't need to be in Mexico. If he just stayed in the States the entire time, this movie would have been fine. If they did all of those things, I appreciated the Switzerland thing because I thought it was gorgeous. And it reminded me of my time in Switzerland. I'm like, those windy roads and this like green pastures. It's gorgeous. But you don't need to go there just because it's pretty. Like for me, it needs to have some sort of cohesiveness and some sort of sense. I think that if you cut out all of those parts and just film them in Miami and Kentucky, it would have been fine.
I'll disagree with you on that, because once again, like they start with one plan and then they end, like Bond ends up finding something else out.
Absolutely. Switzerland has little. If they just mentioned in talking, oh, Gold transports his cars from Switzerland to Kentucky.
But you wouldn't know that. Like that's
what I'm saying. If they just explicitly said that as a line, that would have been a take me there, because you saying that was sufficient. And that's all I'm saying. Personally, there's a lot of.
But I just want to draw your attention, because one of the criticisms you had from Russia with Love with the Train is that they just did the thing on the map. So they just took you from one place to the other, but in this movie they show it to you and you're saying that you didn't enjoy that.
But that's exactly, they did it, but it wasn't executed.
Okay,
You
so
know,
it's more of an
when
execution thing.
When you're trapped, but that's my issue with this movie, is that they had a lot of great things, great tropes, great characters, great ideas. The execution with them flawed, you know, and that there's nothing wrong with that, because that just building blocks for future movies. However, I mean, I think that's the difference. Maybe that's the problem with my rating, is that I see all of these flaws and it just didn't make sense to me. It didn't come together in the end for me. It didn't come together enough for me to be like, oh, that's amazing. The way, like, when I read Harry Potter or something, right? Everything comes together in the end and everything makes sense. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. This movie is like, there's also a lot of parts all over the place. Just doesn't come together.
Fair enough.
So what's your overall rating though, Dave? Like, what are
so this is actually very interesting. Correction from the last two podcasts. Dr. No was not an 8.5. It was an 8.25. I calculated that wrong. So actually, Goldfinger is also an 8.25. All three movies we've watched so far have been 8.25.
No.
So
really?
No, Dave, that's impossible.
It's not impossible.
What was your rating? A 7, you said?
So I'll go through all three movies. Dr. No, I rated an 8. Ramon rated an 8. Chris rated an 8. And John rated a 9. Mm-hmm. From Russia with Love, I rated a 9. Chris rated a 9. Ramon rated an 8. And John rated a 7. And Goldfinger is the same thing.
No.
Where Ramon and Chris rated 9s, I rated an 8, and John rated a 7. So all three times the overall ranking out of 40 is 33.
Wait, Dave, you rated
8.25.
Dave, you rated it what again?
The Goldfinger?
Yeah.
I rated an 8.
Oh, I thought you rated it a 9.
Nah, I rated an 8. So all three movies, I mean, that's consistency for you. All three movies are 8.25, right? So, but I mean, obviously we're only sticking our ratings with whole numbers because I think that makes it easier. And when we get to the end of the Sean Connerys and we have to actually personally rank them, that's where I think we would
argue
play with it a little bit
have
more.
That ranking more solid.
Yeah. So it is interesting though, for sure.
So, but to be clear, everybody give your 1, 2, 3s. For me, Dr. No, 1. Number 2, Goldfinger. Number 3, From Russia with Love. Ramon, where are you with that?
I think we're gonna save this one for another episode. I think we're gonna sign out on this one, and then everyone else can take a look at it.
We're gonna keep the audience in suspense.
Oh yeah.
I feel like if we need a proper ranking, but all right.
All right. And with that, guys, signing out, and we'll continue this in the post. Might put a recording into. Cheers.
Laters.
See ya.
Later.